Managing a small team or business comes with a unique set of challenges. With limited resources and manpower, it's easy for things to feel chaotic and out of your control. How can you, as a leader, accomplish your goals while keeping your team engaged, effective, and accountable? This podcast will give you practical strategies you can implement now to lead your team or business to reach its fullest potential. Welcome to the Organizing Chaos podcast with your host, Danny Coleman.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Organizing Chaos, where we talk about small practical strategies for small teams and small businesses. So today is my first out of the office, as you'll obviously notice, interview with my buddies here, Ryan Whitaker and Mike Peters of Asgard Brewing Company, located here in Columbia, Tennessee. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for being on the show and dealing with our setup here. So we're all sharing this mic, so I apologize if the audio quality isn't what it usually is. But I think that you guys will find it to be. I know. I dropped the ball, but this is my first time, guys. Okay.
Hey, we're honored to be the first guest for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, yeah, totally. So yeah, go ahead and tell me, guys, a little bit about Asgard Brewing, and then how you both got here. So start with Mike.
No, we can start with Ryan. He's actually here first. So, yeah.
Well, I had a job at a distillery before, and they sold the company, and then my boss opened another one, and actually met with Steve Porter, the owner, and he was looking for a brewer and kind of recommended me. I came down and met with Steve. They actually had another guy in mind to be the brewer, but he kind of hired me on as a consultant for the first couple months. And the longer we went on, we just kind of realized that it was a good fit. So I stayed aboard as brewer.
Cool.
And that was 2016, right? We opened officially October 1st, 2016. So I came aboard, I think, May or March of 2016.
Okay, cool. So you were here for fairly early on.
Yeah, I was the first technical employee, I guess.
Okay, cool. Mike?
I came on a little later than that. It was actually a little bit later in the year, October or November. Actually, I think in November of 2016. I was actually living overseas in Guam at the time, and I knew I was going to move back home. Following, life happens, you know.
Yeah.
So I was coming back home, and I was like, I want to get into beer. I knew I wanted to get into beer, and I was moving back to Columbia, and my buddy told me they're opening a brewery in Columbia. I'm like, no. I'm from here. I'm like, there's no way there's ever going to be a brewery in Columbia. There's no way.
I think it's a lot of people's response.
So like I contacted the Porters through their email on the website, and he got back to me. He was like super excited about it, and then I got here. It took about a month or two to actually get hired on, but then so I actually went to Montreux first up in Franklin, and then did a little internship there and was working here bartending, and then that was around November, December of 2016 is when I joined. So I've been here almost since we've been open. So, gotcha. And like I said, knew I always wanted to be into beer and wanted to work in Columbia and at a brewery in Columbia. It sounds like a great dream.
So did you get into beer like while you were traveling abroad, or?
I've actually been into beer a long time, home brewing, not as long as this guy over here, but I've been, about 7 or 8 years, just kind of off and on amateur home brewing, and but I wasn't big into beer when I was, actually it's funny, I was 16 when I first knew I really liked craft beer. Never really cared for, the domestics, nothing wrong with them, they have their place and everything, but I had a Chimay Red. And I was like, this is beer right here.
It's better than the beer that got me into it, but yeah, that's good.
So yeah, I know I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but traveling and being overseas in Germany and all of Europe and being able to drink all those beers and immerse yourself in their cultures is what really excited me about it. And I didn't have a job. I'm a musician, so basically I'm a bum half the time. And so I was traveling around just seeing how they did things and how serious they took it and how good the beer was. It was like, I want to do the same thing, like somehow. That's exactly what I'm sure he has a very similar story.
So how did you get into it?
I think like most young adolescents, you were drinking whatever people would get from their parents or something. And I can remember the first time I drank like a domestic beer and not enjoying it. And I assumed it was just because we were kids and we just didn't appreciate that. And I can distinctly remember we had my brother's a couple years older than me, and he had a friend that they always had these cool bottles in their house. And his dad, I guess, was a craft beer aficionado. Well, they ended up being Rogue bottles, and if you know those, they have like cool logo designs. Especially back then, there was not a lot of
very groundbreaking.
Yeah, there was not a lot of bottles that had those cool designs. And I remember having a hazelnut brown, which is really sweet. But I just distinctly remember going, "Oh my gosh, you can drink alcohol and enjoy the taste of it." Like I didn't know that was a real thing.
Same thing,
and it completely changed my perspective. I mean, I was the guy in college that brought beer to a cake party because I recognized early on like you don't have to drink something you don't like. I mean, we all were trying to experiment with things, but it's like you can actually enjoy these things, so why not enjoy them? That's kind of what got me into it. And then we had another friend my brother had started homebrewing a little bit, and my brother just randomly bought me like a homebrew kit for Christmas one year. I think I was 22 years old. And I brewed 3 of the kit beers, and then I didn't touch it again for a couple months, and then just kind of dove right into it. And back then there was not a lot of people around to talk to, so it was a lot of forums, a lot of internet forums. And honestly, I look back on that as kind of a good thing because I experimented in my own ways and did certain things my own way. And there's a lot of, you can make beer 100 different ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And that's why I always tell people, like, just try, you're going to make something. And then you just improve upon that. You just got to start somewhere and then just keep building on that. So
cool.
Yeah.
So so you guys are doing what you're passionate about. So
luckily enough, yes.
Like you guys worked. What did you guys do before? Like, did you guys work any like terrible jobs?
I worked at a restaurant for almost 10 years, and I started out as a waiter when I was 19, and then was bartending before I was 21. And this was family-owned, family-run, not corporate. Apparently, I don't do well in corporate jobs. Like, I've only really done well. I've only done well at like family-run places. Yeah. And I actually was bartending at night, making great money. So I worked at a brew pub for free for about a year and a half, about 30 hours a week, just trying to learn professionally. Wow. And that's kind of the MO. There's no shortage of help in these kind of places when it comes to brewing because it's either you go to school, and at the time there was only 2 schools you could really go to.
2 brewing schools?
Yeah, now they got a lot of 4-year programs. At the time, then I only knew of Civil Institute. And there was one of those, Berkeley, I think, had a program, or UC Davis, I believe, or something.
One of the first ones, too.
Yeah.
UC Davis, I think, was the first.
None of them were really practical for me to go to. So the other way is hands-on experience. And, people debate about it all the time, like book learning or hands-on experience.
Yeah, I'm hands-on experience.
Me too. And, I'm not as good with the science part as some people, but, I can get, there's situations, and Michael vouch for this, where we may not have something, need something, I can come up with something because I've been in those situations before,
Absolutely. But
other than that, then I worked at a distillery that was a startup too for a couple of years. We built a few different places, moved around. So this is very much where I feel comfortable. And it was weird. It actually took me getting away from beer for a little while to really appreciate it and come back to it. It really, making whiskey every day is very the same process. Yeah. So from the restaurant, I went on to making whiskey for about 5 or 6 years, and they sold that company, and I was kind of floating around for a minute, and I did a couple of corporate jobs, Nissan and Amazon, and those did not last long. Not for me. And, I thought I'd ruined my hobby. Honestly, I really did. And then when I met Steve Porter, the thing was, we want to do different things. I was like, look, I'll promise you one thing. I'm not saying I'll make the best beer in town, but I will make different beers that people are not making. Yeah. Because I feel like there's voids and holes right now for styles that you can do. So that was my approach to it.
Well, and that's what's so cool is like whenever you work for a small business like that, you can pursue those things a whole lot quicker than you could like in a bigger.
We have so much leeway with certain things. It's nobody
nice.
else has it.
I came from I guess more corporate-y job kind of worlds, where mostly like retail, which was. Like I said, when I was coming back home, I did not want to get back into retail. I was like dreading. Yeah. And it's easy. Most people can get into retail, but it's super corporate, lots of rules, lots of restrictions, which has its pros and cons. But I like the leeway of this kind of industry where actually everybody's really laid back and cool and calm for the most part, and as long as very collaborative, and you work together. As long as it gets done and everything's you do your job well, it's super easy. Like people are pretty. Forgiving on a lot of things, which is what I love versus, some of the other jobs like working some big, office supply stores and, Guitar Center when I was, it's a big thing for me, which I love. That job was amazing, but the people made it amazing. People I worked with, I was a manager there too. So I had really good people working under me. But everything coming from above wasn't great. I tried to ease the tension as much as I could, but it was you could feel like
you can tell when they've not done it themselves or something.
Especially when a company gets built out by a bigger company, and they start imposing their rules on you, which we don't have that here, which is fantastic. So
managing can be really rewarding, but if you have a higher up above you that sucks, then it makes it actually really miserable.
It does. And it can be for a variety of reasons. If it's because they don't have the real world experience or they don't understand what you're trying to tell them, like, hey, I understand that's the way that goes, but look at our situation is different here. Right, yeah. That sometimes is frustrating to me. Like, you don't really understand what we're going through here because you're not here or something.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a balance between there's like small businesses usually lack they're usually a little deficient in some structure. They need some more structure than they don't. That
Yeah, I was going to bring that up,
like the
actually.
other side.
You're right.
And we'll dive into that.
Sure.
But I want to ask you guys about like, all right, so what do you guys see Asgard at right now, and then like where do you want to where are you hoping that it eventually kind of gets to? I know you just started brewing across the street.
Well, yeah, we're kind of an anomaly right now, and a lot of it has to do with where we're at. Columbia has not, in Murray County for that fact, actually anywhere south of Franklin, has not had a bar that serves the kind of beer we serve. So the other thing is we're doing contract brewing, and that's a whole kind of another long topic, but essentially we're paying somebody to go and use their equipment and brew beer there and then have it brought back here. There's a couple reasons for that, but we have all the equipment. We're working on that. We'll have that in place. So to me, I always say we're an anomaly because we're like a brewery, but we're not necessarily, but we are. And then also we're a place that has not existed here before.
Right.
So right now people are coming, I think, because we have these beers and stuff, and ultimately they will come because we're a brewery.
Right.
And that's one thing I always try to keep everybody focused on is, like right now we feel like a bar to the employees and everybody. But really when it comes down to it, we're a brewery. And we want people to come here because we are a brewery, and that will happen because there's going to be other bars that has these beers. There's going to be, there's some opening now and coming, and we're, like I said, I just use the word anomaly a lot because I really feel like that's what we are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was when I heard that they were going to do something in here, like it was very new.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, what? Like something's going to go in. Also, this place, by the way, I walked by like a million times, and we need to take we can pause.
No,
If we
we're
okay,
good,
cool,
we're
we're good.
fine.
All right. So yeah, but like there's been
Never-ending stuff around here.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So we are here in Asgard Brewing, by the way, audience who was watching on YouTube. If
Ryan's peacing out for a second.
Ryan's gonna peace out for a minute. But yeah. So tell me about like then where you guys are wanting to take it to from like where it's at now.
Well, like you were saying, like it's kind of new. Like still, I mean, we're coming up in our second year, which is it's amazing how the response we've had, and it's been really great. And Ryan and I have been trying to keep new and different and exciting new beers on, which can be good and bad. Like people like a certain type of beer, and they always gravitate towards that. But we try to keep challenging the palates, and I think that's always our vision. It's always have something new and exciting, bring people in, and so they can enjoy it. They may or may not enjoy it, but at least they tried it. And that's the biggest thing. But how for the whole company going along, brewing our own beer is going to be the biggest step forward. Getting this guy's recipes and his ideas and some of my ideas that we can just work together and push out new beers, brewing them here in Columbia, be the first time.
And stainless steel is shiny. People love to see the shiny equipment and things like that. It
Yeah,
really draws people to it.
You like to see the brewery. Like we can get into a little bit more of that later, but the ambiance of having a brewery, like sitting in a brewery, seeing where the beer's made, seeing some cellar guy, some intern back there cranking away on something. Yeah, like it's interesting, and we've all been there. And
as you know, that's why I take people back in the cooler as much as I can, give samples. It's a good feeling, and people, they like that.
They feel like they're a part of it.
They do,
They feel like you're a part of it.
And that's, especially bars are something that people like to feel like they're a part of because it's a very communal type thing.
And then, as you know, I give samples to everybody at different stages because it is communal. Like if you guys don't appreciate it, why am I making it? I want everybody to see, especially bartenders. I'll give them a sample, and they're like, "That's weird." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not done. Just remember that taste, and remember 2 weeks from now when you taste it again. Remember what you're tasting now, so that you can kind of fully show every part of it."
But that's the next stage for us, though. Is like I said, is getting that going and building on that, expanding the tap room, which obviously needs to be done. If you've been here on a busy Friday or Saturday, it's hard to move around. Which is it's good. That's not a bad problem to have necessarily. But I don't want to drive people away because it's too busy. So we're going to expand some of that, and eventually. We'll have we have the space across the street, so we'll have that to grow into as well, which is baby steps at this point. But I mean, I like to keep it as small as possible. I personally, but I know we need to get beers out there, which we are. We're all over Middle Tennessee area, even into East Tennessee.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next. Like, do you guys have a territory that you're trying to conquer first, or
we just kind of want to do the local area first, which we pretty much are doing.
The models win your backyard first, and then expand.
Which is it's honestly pretty easy to do here, which is a good thing because people they love that we're from here. They love that we're here, and they want to drink our beer, and we think our beer is great, and I think they do too. But getting into other territories where there's other breweries, there's other there's other staples, there's other things, so we have to. That's a little bit more of a battle, but I think we are doing a great job of, like he said, like winning the backyard, which is good. That's a good step, and I think that's actually I'd be happy with just that. If everybody's still happy with all, but
and the business model these days is sell out of your tap room. You make more money selling it yourself, obviously, with anything than selling to a distributor. You know, I mean, think about selling it glass by glass versus selling a whole keg to somebody.
Yeah,
There's a huge
a
difference in price there.
A whole other level in that 3-tier system in the U.S., which is how
whole
the taxes are
3
broken
podcasts
down.
You could go on about.
Yeah, I've heard a few of those, and they're lengthy. But
so I know, like Yazoo, for instance, like they're local beer place, and they're like I think they're everywhere now. Like I feel like I actually saw them last time I was in California.
They have their funk series, Embrace the Funk, is actually across the world. In Europe stuff, but their mainstays I think are like the couple of states around us. People also got to remember Yazoo started in 2001. And they've been around, or 2002. They've been around for over 15 years.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest breweries around here.
They also, they went after that market. Now with the competition, there's I forget how many. Like I think it's 70% of the beer is made by 3 companies in the world.
Wow.
I mean, so like getting on a grocery store shelf,
right,
a lot more difficult than it used to be.
Is that a goal for you guys? Like, do you want to be in grocery
stores?
We're
not going to chase it. We're not going to chase it right now.
Of course, you want to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, people, see our label or something, pick it up as you're in Kroger or Publix or whatever. And see our logo and see, that's in Columbia, that's right down the road, and grab that,
Yeah.
That's a thing because everybody goes to the grocery store.
Yeah.
But you don't want to just chase that, and that'd be the only thing you focus on.
It can be. It's a double-edged sword on that one too, because it's a lot harder to do, and you're competing with shelf space, which is a whole other thing. It's like going to Japan and having 77 different. They actually buy shelf space for like millions of dollars just so they can put their candy or their Coke or whatever on the shelf, and it's like they actually buy it's legal there, which I don't hope that never happens here, but
that's highly regulated in the States.
Yeah, it is. So you get lost in the fold, if you will, and I mean it's a good and a bad thing. So somebody can pick you up, or they can just pass you by.
And just see like.
Yeah,
it's just completely exploded.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is most of those are only made by 3 companies, and that's not a statistic. That is a fact. Most of all those beers that come in. So imagine trying to battle them and get on those shelf. Like, to me, I want the product to shine for itself. I want people to tell their grocery stores they want it, and that's my thing has always been just continue to make good beer, and the word will get out. People will ask for it, and that's what you want.
Be consistent and have a good product, and people will eventually learn that and go, hey, these guys are good.
Again, that goes back to the filling the holes that nobody's making, the styles. Exactly. Like I said, I want to make some styles that are not out there, that are unique, you know. So,
well, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about then your all's positions in the company and the kind of what you guys do, and then we'll talk a little bit more about like what it's like to actually being a small business with a big vision. That's the thing. It's just like there's Columbia's starting to become full of these small businesses with big vision, which is so exciting. So I know that you are the main cook, right? You're the master.
Honestly, what's weird is we kind of argue with the manager at first. I don't know if argue is the right word, but we're like, we need like clearly defined roles,
right?
And he didn't want to do that. And at the time, I didn't really understand it, and now it makes a little more sense. I mean, I was posted the other day on social media. I've learned more about construction working in breweries than I ever thought. Breweries and distilleries than I ever thought I would learn.
Overnight, yeah.
And so, my technical title, I guess, is master brewer, which I hate because I feel like when you learn something every day, you're not a master of anything, and you should continue to learn.
It sounds cool.
Everything, It does.
Pretty cool
actually, I was told before, being a distiller or a brewer, the best thing about it is telling people you are, because it's a hard job. It's just like an industrial job. But anyways, but I do everything from the plumbing to whatever. I mean, honestly, me and Mike joke around like it. Me and him just do. There's nothing we can't do here,
right,
and I don't like electrical stuff. I don't mess with that myself. But I mean, we have titles, but we do so much more than that because it's the nature of the business. When you're starting up, and you have to, and if you have somebody new coming aboard, maybe you're not confident yet in them being able to complete their task, so you got to help them, and so you need to know how to do that in order to help them. So we wear every hat possible, in my opinion.
When I was doing my internship up at Mantra, I remember Derek and Chad, they're the owners and the brewers, and they do pretty much everything. They told me, like, seriously, you're going to be a mechanical engineer by the time you're done here, because you're going to figure out how to not pay somebody else to fix your problems, because there's always problems. Just like we were talking about earlier about sound. It's 99% of it's troubleshooting. Yeah.
The fact that we only have one mic right now.
So it's a lot of troubleshooting. It's a lot of fixing your problems, and sometimes you can't wait a day or two for some professional to come and fix it. You got to learn how to fix it yourself. And when your company depends on you, got $10,000-$20,000 worth of material trying to get it out to the public, and it's delayed, and you got to pay bills, and you got to do it yourself. I mean, it's
so
the best way to do it.
You're more of the manager of like the tap room.
I'm
like
tap room manager, and I do technically have the title of assistant brewer, even though we don't have the brewing system going yet. But yes, tap room manager would be my main. I do a little outside sales too.
Okay.
And we all kind of do a little bit of that in our own ways, but we're all kind of ambassadors of the brand, if you will. But
me not having anybody to help with the brew stuff, I have to rely on him to be able, if I'm not here to go do something. So whether it's as a assistant brewer or not, I mean, I've got to have him to help me with certain
that's
aspects
the thing about small business is you have to do that.
Right. Yeah, wearing multiple hats.
Yeah. Exactly.
So there are pros and cons. We talked about that, and so when you guys are talking about wearing multiple hats, like that's one of the things that I see is like it's a difficult part of small business because who's like accountable for who's formally accountable for it, like like the plumbing
when it doesn't get done, whose fault is it?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's pros and cons. So talk a little bit about like what you would like to see like going forwards, like in terms of like what your position that you're hoping for and kind of what you see the organization.
I mean, honestly, I said all along I wanted nothing to do with the tap room. Haven't been in the restaurant business for 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't like the drama that goes along with that, and generally it's because it's younger kids you're working with, and I was one of those younger kids. I get it. But there's a situation where I was here one day and watched the bartenders, and it was just like, hey, this is not acceptable. They're not doing what they need to do. And so you can ask Mike, I may dabble too much in it, and I try not to when I don't have to. But when you see somebody doing something that can be done better, it's hard not to say something. You know what I mean? It's hard not to say, hey, I know you do it this way. Why not try it this way or that way?
I noticed the same thing. We didn't have a taproom manager. We didn't have. It was basically nobody knew who to answer to. Nobody knew where to go to. So yet again, learning in a small businp
the structure, you have to have some structure.
So I came from a more corporate world, which that is a pro, like we were talking about, is that it is organized. There is a SOP or standard operating procedure for everything. Yeah. And if you don't follow it, then they're going to find somebody that will. And there's no shortage of people looking for jobs. So I mean, they don't care. That's the thing about corporate too, that they don't care. But then when you get on the small side, which is that's a con sometimes, but then it's also a pro that you rely on the people that care about this place, and everybody cares about it. There's nobody up there going
to a certain degree.
You look at numbers in a corporate world, and like this number doesn't look great, but they're like he said earlier, they're not here. They don't see it day to day, and that was my biggest problem with some of the jobs I had. Was this guy is telling me I have this 100 task list of impossible things to conquer in a week, and if I don't get it done, I am in jeopardy.
And honestly, the biggest con is the structure as well. And I told Mike right when he got, he was bartending for a little bit first, and then shortly got hired as the manager. And I said, look, man, I'm prone to kind of messing about and not, when you don't have a deadline. Like so, for example, the distillery I worked at before, we were sharing equipment, so I would have to come at night sometimes. Yeah. I didn't have a deadline. As long as I got these things done by the end of the week, they were done. But that I'm prone to sometimes not getting it done. So I even was like, look, hold me accountable. I need somebody there that can also be like, look, man, we got to have it. As a manager, he knows what beers we need on it. So, hey, look, we got to have these done. We got to have this here. And that structure, I always tell people, you think it's fun working somewhere with no rules until it's not fun working there anymore. You know what I mean?
You have to have some structure, obviously. I mean, that's the way it works. And learning and building your own standard operating procedures is what we're doing. What works, what doesn't work, it's a trial by fire type thing.
What's the hardest part for you, like from your perspective? Like, what's the hardest part about like taking things, organizing the chaos, right? That's why I named the show this. But like, taking what you guys talked about, like startup and everything, everyone's sharing stuff. But then some structure starting to come in, right? You became the manager and whatnot.
Had to organize some of the chaos.
So so like, how, like, tell me a little bit about that. Like, how was that for you? Like,
honestly, I really liked the challenge of that because I had worked in other areas, and when I came in, it's like I knew it needed to be done. Like it just had to be done. Like
I didn't want to manage a tap room. I did not want to do that.
As I was coming in, I was like, I was only bartending once a week because I was working another job, and I was just like, but I would come in, I'd see all these things not getting done, things I knew, and the more I worked at a more seasoned, still small business, but more seasoned. They had rules. They had this is what you did, and I'm like. So I basically took that playbook and ran with it here.
Cool. I knew it needed to be done too, and I pushed really hard for him to be the manager because we needed that. For sure, we needed that.
And that's the biggest thing. I was like, I came in every time. I was like, this isn't getting done. This isn't getting done. So I was like, oh man, like I have to do this. Like if I don't do this, nobody else is going to do this. And like not saying that somebody else couldn't have, but nobody was. And so I was like, I have to do this for this place. I enjoy this place. I love being in Columbia. I love this place is here. And I want this place to succeed. And I want all of us to succeed. I want us all to make money. I want us all to, live a happy, wonderful life here in Columbia. And it's not going to get done, if we don't have some kind of structure.
Right.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately too, and this is one thing I wanted to point out, and I haven't even talked to Mike about this. The separation between managers and employees.
Yeah.
When a smaller business like this, when you all are working as a
Very
team
hard,
a lot,
yeah.
it is hard because then you go looking at somebody to try to, tell them something serious, and they maybe think you as more of a friend because you have to work so closely with everybody, and we do so many different things. And I'm very, prone to this too, of being more friends with people that maybe I'm not saying you can't be friends,
Right,
obviously,
yeah.
but there's got to be a separation in there somewhere. There really does, and I've been thinking about that a lot more just recently because, it's hard to tell your friend something compared to your subordinate something, or it's weird. It is definitely weird.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any tips for that? Any
Yeah,
success?
you do have to separate it. I've learned that too, being a manager in several stores.
My thing is don't ever hire your friends or don't hire couples. And I know that sounds weird or bad, but I've done that for a long time. I worked in a restaurant where that happened a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not really fair, but and it does work out sometimes, but the vast majority of the time, it makes the situation difficult. It really does.
I've done it before, like I said, and I grew up in the ranks of, so I started off at, like, say, a Guitar Center. I was just an associate. And then I took over the management job in the drum section. Then I was an assistant manager. Then I was, like, the store manager. And then all these guys are still there. You were friends, like, 6 months to a year ago. Now you're, like, you have to command these people necessarily in a way, like,
I think moving up is even harder. You're right.
It's really hard to do that. And so I took that lesson from the corporate world, which is yet again another pro I learned from them. Is like you grow up in the ranks is what you want to do in every business in a way. So you have to separate it. You have to find, and it's easier when you first come onto a job. Like when I was here, I really necessarily wasn't friends with everybody. I was on a different job. I was only here one day a week. I never really saw half the people half the time.
Yeah.
So it was a little easier to jump into that. But like when you come up in the ranks, you have to separate it. If you don't, then it seriously is going to be. You
got to be cognizant of it at all times. Like if we go out after work or something, I know everybody wants to be. You got to be able to separate it, and it's hard to do. It's very hard to do.
Yeah, because because it's a laid back environment and whatnot, it almost feels like if you go to another bar after work or something like that, or you go hang out. So. Yeah. Well, that's the tricky part, I would say.
Yeah. It's very hard to do, but
because as you grow closer, it becomes harder to be like. You would think it would be easier to be honest, but it kind of gets it gets harder to be like
it's almost like the
stern honest,
child relationship.
Yeah.
Like you want to be honest, but you're always going to hold that little thing back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You still want to make sure they take you seriously. Like as a manager, like it's like, hey, I need this done. I'm not messing around.
Yeah.
I'm like this does need to be done. I know we're cool.
Yeah.
And that you think, oh well, if I don't do this, he's still going to be cool with me.
Right.
I will, but I'm not going to be very happy with you at the same time because you're making my job harder.
Right.
You're making all your associates and friends hard. Their jobs are 10 times harder. That's what I've tried to drive into the, my associates' heads are like, you're not necessarily messing me over as much as you are the next guy.
Yeah.
Or like if you don't do your closing duties, the guy that comes in the morning has to do your job for you to open up the place. So that's I try to drive that home. I don't know if it always gets through, but
I've always encouraged other employees to, I worked at a place before where it was like if you didn't do those things, it wasn't necessarily the managers that got onto you, it was the other employees because, you don't want them fighting in between staff, but you want them to understand that it affects them. That's very important.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Don't let anybody down.
I remember that a lot for sure. Well, I could talk to you guys forever.
I know, man. I feel like we barely got in there. I'm sorry.
This is good. Thanks again for talking with me. What is you guys got anything upcoming that you want people to know about or anything?
We have right now is like festival season and event season. I mean, social media. Any of our social media stuff. We've got. The shrimp thing, I guess.
Yeah, the shrimp thing on July 27th. Shrimp boil, not a thing. We have tickets for sale now. That's actually a big thing.
It's a new seafood company in Columbia that's been doing very well.
Yeah, they're great. Bubba Gundy. They're going to be doing the catering for that.
We'll have some new beers for that.
Definitely some new beers on for that. So get your tickets here at the tap room. I think you can get them at Bubba Gundy's as well.
How much are they?
Depends on the plate. I think it's 18
like a
and
pound
25.
or
It depends on your.
cool.
Seafood's not cheap, but we want to make sure everybody's covered on that
and
one.
You get a beer with that as well.
You get a free pint with that as well. Asgard pint. So yeah, definitely check that out. Anything else you can check Facebook.
Beer and cans now. So
we do have the beers and cans.
What's your address so people can find you?
104 East 5th.
Awesome.
Here in Columbia, right downtown and right next to the Riverside Bridge.
And all the social media platforms.
All of them.
Yep.
Yeah, Facebook's usually.
Not Snapchat. That makes me feel old.
We're not there yet. Well, cool. Thanks again for
snap some beers.
Thanks again for being on, guys.
Thank
really
you,
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Appreciate it, bro.
See ya. Thanks, guys.
Want more? Go to DannyColeman.me to download Danny's free small business hiring guide, which includes tips, templates, and tools, plus a step-by-step process you can use to find and keep high-quality employees for your small team or business.